Welcome to the Talkin Tabletop Podcast, a collection of tabletop thoughts from a growing community of board gamers. And I'm your host, Ryan, from the Mista Rau Gaming YouTube channel. Yes, welcome to episode 2 of the Talkin Tabletop Podcast. As mentioned, I'm your host, Ryan, from the Mista Rau Gaming YouTube channel, and I like to welcome everybody back for episode 2. We had such a great turnout on episode 1, and let's just keep the good times rolling into episode 2. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. You're in for a real treat. What is the Talkin Tabletop Podcast? Well, this is a collection of different board gamers and tabletop gamers giving their thoughts on some sort of particular topic that is interesting to them at that particular moment. This could be talking about some games that they've been playing recently. They could be reviewing games. They can be talking about crowdfunding. They could be talking about what's happening in the board gaming industry at this particular moment. Or maybe they just have some interesting thoughts around different aspects of tabletop gaming and board gaming in general, because I am just leaving the topics up to each individual content creator. And hopefully, maybe we even get to a collection of non-content creators themselves as well. If you would like to contribute to the Talkin Tabletop Podcast, just reach out to me to mistraugaming@gmail.com. All right, well, who is appearing on this week's episode? Well, that is going to be Mr. Alex McKenzie himself from Meeple and the Moose, DaniCha, Daniel Anderson from Tabletop For One YouTube channel, brand new edition. We got the gentleman from Cardboard Conjecture, Chris and Norm. We also have Brian Chandler from Colourblind Games. All right, sit back, relax, and enjoy all of the content that is coming here. If you are here just to hear one particular creator's voice, just stick around for the entire thing, because everybody has such awesome content that they have provided for us this time around. So I will see you at the end of the episode. Enjoy, everybody.
Hey, hello, hi. My name is Alex, and I write board game reviews over at meepleandmoose.com, and I'm here to be a part of the Talkin Tabletop Podcast. This weekend, I was chatting with my cousin about our New Year's resolutions in regards to our favorite hobbies. She had mentioned that she had read 170 novels last year and was hoping to top that number in 2024. I asked how she managed to read a book every other day, and she reported that most of her reading were generic romance novels that were entertaining enough while being easy and quick to consume. My own reading habits are pretty much the complete opposite. I read 3 novels in 2023, one of which left me emotionally devastated. My reading habits skew much more to the quality over quantity side of the spectrum, but it got me thinking about my main hobby and the rate at which I consume board games. Books and board games share a similar problem with most forms of media. There is simply too much content to consume. There are an estimated 500,000 new books each year, 18,000 movies, 10,000 new video games, and 5,000 new board games. There are millions of hours of new content created every single year that keeps our backlogs full, with absolutely no hope for us to keep up, let alone going back to catch up on gems that we've missed. Under this deluge of content, I can see why we seek to put up some guardrails on our hobby time. Of course, no one can experience all the content. We naturally winnow those astronomical numbers down into media that we actually care about. We ignore products we know we aren't interested in, like I ignore the entire horror genre. I just don't care. We count on reviews, both professional and user-generated, to steer clear of stinkers, and we push products made by our favorite creators to the top of our lists. And through these measures, we find ourselves with a much more manageable list of exciting new releases to spend our time, money, and energy seeking out. In 2023, I recorded 328 plays of 132 different games, 54 of those games being new to me. A respectable showing, a little down from the previous year, but still a good year for board games. A few of the new to me games were big hits like Acropolis and Cat in the Box, while others were stinkers in disguise like Beast and Shipwreck Arcana. Most of the new to me games fell into the "that was pretty good, no complaints, didn't set my world on fire, I'd play it again if someone requested it" category. It's not a bad place for a game to be, but where the average game falls in my estimation. When my cousin told me she read 170 books over the year, at first I was amazed. Then I began to consider the parallels between her reading hobby and my board game hobby. Most of the books she read didn't set her world aflame, they were just content that got consumed and then placed aside. A number in a spreadsheet, an entry in her Goodreads profile. She wasn't changed by the book, her worldview remained unaltered. Likewise, I played 54 new to me board games last year. None of them broke into my top 10. In fact, shockingly few of my top games of all time saw a single play this year. This isn't to say that the new to me games were bad games, they just didn't shake my world. My worldview remains unaltered. And now here I stand at the dawn of the new year, reflecting on what I'm doing with my hobby. I'm understanding why people subject themselves to challenges, like a 10 by 10 or a alphabet challenge or play all my unplayed games challenge. I'm left asking myself, why do I spend dozens and dozens of hours playing board games that I only like and not love? Why don't I resolve to play Food Chain Magnate or Galaxy Trucker 10 times this year? Surely that would bring me more joy than the rat race of buying, unboxing, learning, and teaching new games every single week. Should I consider pivoting to only playing my absolute hits and abandon my pursuit of new games? Would I be happier playing 3 great games over and over instead of 170 different kinda good games? Maybe, maybe not. I know that I derive a significant amount of joy from discovery. That whole process of learning new games, the thrill of acquisition, the crescendo of finally getting a game to the table with my friends, is part of what makes me happy in this hobby. That being said, that rat race can get exhausting. And if you spend all of your hobby time just grinding through new releases, it's really easy to fall into unsustainable habits and burn out on the deluge of new releases. All of this to say, I hope this year you take some time to reflect on what brings you joy. If you've been feverishly acquiring games or playing 100 games a single time before moving on and feeling burnout, I hope you take time to shake up how you engage with this hobby. Remember, buying games does not equal more time to play games, and if playing games is what really makes you happy, then it's worth spending some time refocusing on what aspects of board games actually make you happy. And that's it from me this week. If you want to read some of my board game reviews, I posted a review of Bag of Chips last week. You can find all my reviews on my blog, meepleandthemoose.com. On social media, I'm only really active on Blue Sky as @MeepleandTheMoose, and on Discord, I'm mostly active on the Nerd Shelves server. It's a great community, and I enjoy being a part of it there. Just yesterday, I was posting pictures of my Voidfall unboxing adventure. If you need an invite code to either Blue Sky or the Nerd Shelves Discord server, just send me an email at meepleandthemoose@gmail.com, and I can forward along the information. Thanks for listening, and take care out there. Or as Norm says, keep your stick on the ice and take care out there, eh?
Hey everyone, it's Danielle. I hope you've all been doing well. In case you don't know me, I run the YouTube channel that primarily focuses on solo board gaming called DaniCha. That's DANICHA. So you'll find me there if you're interested. Give me a subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Otherwise, I'm going to dive into my topic for this episode. So I've been playing a lot of Board Game Arena. So although I know I just said a few seconds ago that I focus on solo board gaming, there's actually a lot of multiplayer games I do play on Board Game Arena. And I'm going to start with Captain Flip. So that's the first of the 5 board games I will be highlighting in my segment. So Captain Flip is a game that is going to be published this year, 2024. And it is a very fun and quick multiplayer game. It comes with 4 different maps that you get to play with. So there's some, replayability there. But overall, it is kind of like a push your luck game. So essentially, you're going to have a bunch of different tiles in a bag, and you'll be pulling them out and placing them on your mat. And when you draw these tiles, you can only look at one side of it. So they are double-sided. If you don't like what you see, you can flip it over, but you can't flip it back. So I find that aspect to be definitely a push your luck mechanic there, because you're hoping for something better, but then obviously there is a chance that it could be a worse option for your board. And some of these boards are a little bit more restrictive than others. Like some have columns where you would maximize your score if the column had all different tiles. Other columns might have ones where if you fill it up, you get 5 points at the end of the game. If you fill it up, you get 3 points. There's also this concept of a treasure map where you'll get an extra bonus point or coin at the end of your turn if you have the treasure map. But it's also important to get the treasure map into your possession by the end of the game and be the one holding on to it, because if you happen to tie with the other player, the tiebreaker is whoever has that treasure map. So that's actually happened to me many times while playing Captain Flip on Board Game Arena. Just some tips there. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out already, it recently came out of beta testing and is now available on BGA. The second Board Game Arena game I'd like to highlight is called The Veil of Eternity. So this one is a game that was published in 2023, and I am really enjoying this one. This one is in beta on Board Game Arena, and I've been enjoying it at 2 players mostly, although I think it shines best at 3. So the concept of this game, it is a card game, and there's a couple of phases that happen during this game. So there's a hunting phase where you draft 2 cards from the game board. There's the action phase where you take various actions, which include selling cards, taming, or summoning cards. And then there's a resolution phase so that you can use the effects on the cards you summoned. So it's a pretty strategic type of game, in my opinion. You do kind of have to think about what you already have out and summoned and determine if you want to sell cards to get, money to summon cards, because there's a cost attached to summoning cards. I do think this is a very fun game, not as light as Captain Flip. This one does require a bit of like that gaming mindset, I think. So it's not for everybody, but it is for me. And I'm really enjoying it. All right. So the third game I'll highlight is called Earth. So this game I have played countless times. I rarely win, but it's very addicting to play. This wait is along the same lines of The Veil of Eternity, although this game runs very long. So if you play especially turn-based, it's going to take a while to finish the game, in my experience. And I mostly play 2 players then, and it does say on Board Game Geek that it is best at 2. So this is a game that I probably would love to have in my physical collection, but I think managing the game and keeping track of everything I have access to do when it's my turn would probably break my brain. So I do like how Board Game Arena is scripted in the sense that it can carry out everything that you need to do and prompt you to do it without you having to think about it, if that makes sense. So that's why I really like games like Earth on Board Game Arena, because it guides you on your turn enough so that you can play a game pretty seamlessly, even if you don't really know 100% what you're doing. But yeah, Earth is a card game. It does have some really cool meeples that I would love to have in person, but perfectly fine digitally. But yeah, I feel like it's tableau building, although I don't know if that's officially the mechanism tied to this game. But you're basically trying to fill out, I guess, a forest full of your cards that hopefully you've built an engine that helps you gain points throughout the game. To put it simply, I mean, it's more than that, but there's a lot of good themes in here related to Earth and nature, like flora, fauna. Yeah, beautiful looking cards. I really do appreciate those. But yeah, it is a game for 1 to 5 players. So if you are interested in playing it solo, you can do that on Board Game Arena. I love when games that are solo friendly are implemented that way on Board Game Arena. Some games that are solo friendly and are on Board Game Arena, I don't know, sometimes they don't implement the solo mode, which is disappointing. But yeah, Earth is good. Recommend playing that on Board Game Arena. It's less to manage on the table. All right, and then following that, we have Heat, which is my 4th game that I'll highlight. Heat, I do have the physical version, and I played it, I think, twice so far. But it is a massive, what did they say? A massive table hog. So it is so much more manageable to play on Board Game Arena because everything's within a click of a mouse. So I've been enjoying Heat. I like that it calculates a lot of the things that you need to calculate to know whether or not you're making the right decisions and using the cards to advance on the track. So if you're not familiar with Heat, you're basically racing your race car around a track. And it has this really nice solo mode where you play with legends, and those cars also move and you're racing with them. So there's a really, really fun aspect to it where it's like there's curves. And if you don't manage those curves appropriately, you're probably going to be spun out if you don't have enough heat to manage it. So I really like that aspect of it. It's like definitely like your push your luck, just like Captain Flip. Like you have to hope that you're not over driving too fast, I guess, along those curves. So definitely recommend that. And then the last game I'll highlight is called Biomos, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. But gosh, this has been a very fun game for me. I haven't heard of it until Board Game Arena. And it is just a pattern building game, and you're drafting tokens, land tokens, to put on your planet board. And depending on how you have your tokens situated, you complete these contract cards. So you're trying to complete these cards that will give you points towards the end of the game. And so because it's a drafting type game, it's pretty competitive. I mostly play with 2 players, although it's best at 3. And so you have to really hope that whatever you're trying to go for, your opponent's not going for. And I find that to be just very fun. It's a light game. I would say it's along the same lines as Captain Flip. If you want to get a 5-minute game in, I think you can definitely do that on Board Game Arena. I would say most of the time, Board Game Arena games tend to come under the playing time that's listed on Board Game Geek. So you could keep that in mind. If you're ever looking to get a 10-minute game in somehow, then you'd be able to see Biomos as one of the options. All right, well, that is my segment for the Talkin Tabletop Podcast. Appreciate you guys listening in, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Daniel here for Tabletop For One, and I'm so excited to be here on Mista Rau Gaming and joining in on the podcast, and I thank Ryan for inviting me to be here. Now, if you don't know me, I'm the host of Tabletop For One, a solo board gaming YouTube channel that focuses on tutorial solo playthrough videos. And yeah, I love solo gaming, and I'm happy to share the solo side of the board gaming hobby with you, and excited to talk about some solo games. Now, I wasn't sure what to talk about for this first episode, so I just want to talk about some of my favorite games of all time. You know, my number 1 favorite game is Spirit Island. I love this game so much. I love the fact that this game is scalable depending on how much difficulty or complexity you want. You could have it simple as you want or as complex as you want, and it's very approachable. Now, it may seem difficult to grasp and hard to win, and actually after 4 plays I almost got rid of the game. I almost sold it, and then I stuck it through, and it became one of my favorite games of all time. Actually, my number 1 favorite game of all time, and I love this game. I have tutorials on it on my channel, but yeah, I highly recommend it, especially the Horizons edition, which gives you kind of an easier way into the game, makes it a little bit easier to understand the rules and easier to play the spirit. So definitely my 1 recommendation there. Now, I also want to recommend Plum Island Horror. Now, this one came out at the end of December. It was sent through the P500 system of GMT Games. And, you know, GMT Games is known for its war games, but every now and then they have, you know, a game that departs from that. And it's still being delivered right now, so not a lot of people have received it yet. But I have to tell you, I've played it 5 times, and it is one of the best games I have ever played. I love this game so much. It is a zombie survival tower defense kind of game where you control 2 factions, and in the factions you have 5 different characters with different abilities. You're trying to go throughout the city, rescue civilians, stop the stacks of zombies coming down the lanes, and you want to prevent them from getting to the end of the lanes and overrunning the city. And yeah, you're repairing things. things, you're searching for things, you're using helicopters and boats and all sorts of things. Oh, the game is so good. It is on the heavier side. You know, if we're using Board Game Geek's complexity rating, we're talking about a 4.0. And so, yeah, it's a lot of things to learn, but it becomes very intuitive, and it's actually not too bad. And there's a lot of good player aids that help aid in the game. And so I'd say definitely look out for this game because it is going to be a big hit. I predict it'll be a big hit. I predict it will be the best game of 2024 for me personally. And it already has made it to its number 2 spot of all time on my list. So that is quite the feat because I had Warfighter. Warfighter, which is now number 3 on that list, is one of my favorite games of all time, and it is a game that actually helped me get through some dark times because I've dealt with severe depression and anxiety and continue to do so. And Warfighter was one of those games where it took me away. It took me to a place where I could fight battles and win and struggle through them, and it made me feel like I could fight the battles in my own personal life dealing with the darkness that I deal with. And so Warfighter is one of those games that will always stick with me. I own just about everything for it. Not quite all the expansions, but I own like 7 core games and a bunch of expansions. And yeah, my favorite of them is the Warfighter Pacific. It's so thematic and it's just a great game. Now, if you don't know what Warfighter is, it plays like an LCG game. So like Arkham Horror, Marvel Champions, where you have this ever-expanding game because there's so many different expansions, and you have different mission setups. You outfit your squad with different, weapons and armor and that sort of thing, and try and get it ready to approach the objective and complete the mission. And yeah, it's a fantastic game. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're into the war game theme. But even if you're not, it plays out like a war game adventure game. It very much is an adventure game, and I absolutely love it. And so for my number 4, I go with Bullet Heart. Now, Bullet Heart is such a great game. It's the only game in my collection that I've called a perfect solo experience. It provides this great tension, this push your luck, this fun puzzle action as you're trying to, decide how to attack the boss and how to dodge its bullets. It has the bullet hell shoot 'em up video game theme on a puzzle game. It works so well. Now, I play without the timer. There is a real-time timer if you want to use it, but the rules allow for you to use it without the timer, and that's what I do. I highly recommend it. I only do the boss rush mode, and so it's a great mashup where you're playing one heroine against a boss, and then what you could do on the next game is just flip them over, because then you can use that boss as the heroine and the other heroine as the boss, and so you get some really good, interesting matchups between those characters, different special abilities, different ways to approach the game. It is such a great game. Highly recommend it. And so for number 5, I have Revive. I highly recommend Revive. It's this fantastic Euro game where it's an action efficiency game. See, in the solo mode, you have 20 action points, and you have to use your action points efficiently, and you can extend those action points by doing different things, using different resources certain ways that give you added actions for free and allow you to build things. You have this weird machine contraption thing that gives you these different passive abilities and different triggered abilities that you can build out as you research the different research tracks. And it's just, oh man, there's so much to this game. It's a beat your own score solo mode, so that may be a deal breaker for many. However, it's one of those games where you just don't care because the gameplay is so much fun, so rewarding, so varied, so fantastic. I love this game so much. Now, I haven't played the expansion yet. They had an expansion come out. I haven't seen it at my local game store, and I'm waiting for them to get a copy, and as soon as they get it, I'll grab that up right away. But yeah, this game is one of the best games of all time. It made it to my number 5 spot, and it'll probably remain there unless the expansion makes it better, but I highly doubt it. We'll see. And so there you have it. I give you my top 5 favorite solo games. I hope you enjoyed the list. I'm sure you have some great games on your list. There's so many great solo games out there. I hope you enjoy the solo gaming hobby. And if you don't play solo, I hope you enjoy the multiplayer hobby. I hope you enjoy the hobby altogether, because this is such a great hobby with so many great people and something that we can share together coming from all walks of life. And I just love that. And so happy gaming to you. And thank you again, Ryan, for allowing me to be here.
Welcome. This is the Cardboard Conjecture Podcast. I'm Norm.
I'm Chris.
And we're going to extend from the first time that we spoke on the Talkin Tabletop.
Yeah.
And we're going to, first we did the 25 to 11, and this time what are we going to do, Chris?
We're going to do 100 to 50. No, we're going to do the top 10. We're going to critique part of each person's top 10.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Discuss.
Yeah.
Talk about games that we want to get to the table. You know what? I'm going to start this because I want to talk about Earth. Earth so much. Everybody's talking about it. Dave has mentioned it a few times, and it's a good Euro.
It's just a good game.
Give me the elevator pitch on this one.
So the elevator pitch, okay. Do you like tableau building? Because if you like tableau building, this is what it's all about. There's no downtime because when one person's taking their turn, instead of everybody just waiting until they can do something, every time that somebody takes a turn in Earth, you get to do something. It might not be as impressive as what the person who is actually doing it is doing, but you still get to contribute and do something and expand your ecosystem, which is really cool. There are so many cards. It's kind of like Terraforming Mars / Ark Nova with just this gigantically thick stack of cards that you're going through. Sometimes you'll have 25, 30 cards in your hand that you have to try to manage as well.
So it just sounds frenetic.
It's crazy. It's crazy when you're like, okay, these 12 are cards that I don't really care about, but I need to keep them for like this action here. And these 8 are ones that I'm probably going to do something. These 4 might work. Yeah, so you got like this constant shuffling of cards within your hand trying to
see. And when you're explaining just like that, I was immediately wrote it down and looked it up while you were chatting. And everything about it. I love cards because there's no dice because dice hate.
Yep.
And so that's Earth. That's the one that off your list that appeals.
Yeah, it's a super solid game. I think it came in at like one of the top games for a lot of people's top 10 lists for 2023, and I think it's a really good game. I love it. I think it's
all right. So what off my list? Peak.
That I haven't played ever before would have to be Darwin's Journey.
And I played that. That was just one play, and I was like smitten. That's a good word. I was smitten with it.
You were smitten. I think, our buddy Rob and Anna Marie, they've played it quite a bit lately, and they quite liked it too. Aaron from Bards Alive has played it quite a bit, and he seems to really like it. So you guys have all got me on this Darwin experience.
It's Euro, right? I mean, you have to understand that it's worker placement. There's tracks, and the tracks are hidden in this concept of a boat, meandering through the Galapagos Islands. And there's a lot of cool thresholding kind of things. What I like about it with a lot of Euros is everybody starts out of the gates the same, and then you get to just nudge your way into a different scoring, strategy or point getting methodology. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think one thing that really appealed to me from what I've heard so far is that you actually level up your workers as the game progresses.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And they can specialize, right?
Objectives that have certain, it's like you need, 3 of this, they're colors, right? I mean, it's Euro, but you need 3 and 2 and 1. And so you have to try and create one of your, I guess, scientists, explorers, or expeditionists, specialize them in enough of that where you can start pulling objective points and stuff like that. So it's really
nice.
cool. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool.
The one off your list that I I'm pulling the rules off of BGG so I can read them because I can't find the game. That's Blood Bowl Team Manager.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's just, it's such a cool game. And
Card game.
it's a card-based game.
It says of its older, the box.
Yeah, the old tabletop game. And yeah, they've compressed it right down into a deck of cards, and it's a deck building game to some degree as well, where you're actually getting new players to add to your team if you do well, or even if you don't do well in certain highlights every week. It's really cool. It really takes the feel of Blood Bowl and converges it down into a game that's in a playable amount of time, because Blood Bowl on its own is like, a 2.5 hour game for strictly 2 players. Yeah. This one can be like an 1.5 hour game for 4 players. Okay. And it's really, really neat. So you're actually competing with each other, and do you commit all of your guys to one matchup, or do you try to spread yourself out and try to just get some rewards from multiple matchups along the way? Are you going to get completely knocked out because somebody's got some trolls on the other side of the field and all they do is just beat the garbage out of you every single time? And it's really cool. Unfortunately, it is so out of print. A buddy of mine was just trying to track down a copy, and the 2 expansions alone for it are selling for over $400 on eBay. And
I promise.
So I've got a semi-retirement plan in the corner of my game room here for that game. So.
Well, I promise that on my list, there's nothing that's that expensive to go and find a unicorn. Hey, so you want to round this out and give me a pick off?
I think the other one that I really have never had a chance to play or an opportunity to play that I want to give a shot to is Underwater Cities. I love Terraforming Mars, and everybody's like, "Oh, if you like Terraforming Mars, you'll love Underwater Cities." I just haven't taken the plunge into those underwater cities.
Oh, that was very fun. I mock the submarines because they look, like I said, they look like little vacuum tube message vessels. But it's that connection of three areas on the board where you do this kind of worker placement and play a card at the same time. Mm-hmm. And if the card matches the color of that area, you get to do the big action. If not, you do a smaller action. Right. And of course, the big thing is on your board, you're creating an underwater city. You're developing this structured network. I remarked yesterday when we recorded, I love this interconnected networking concept because like every other kind of game where you're putting something on or taking something off, there's benefits ensuing, or when there's scoring around. Those are the bonuses. And
well, I think I know why networking appeals to you in that sense. It's growing up on the prairies and have to shovel, pathways through the snow. You're kind of doing that in a board game now. So.
Yeah, exactly. making kind of snowdrift paths.
Exactly.
The snowboarder went through. We're good. Yeah. Vladimir Suchi is again from the list I remarked. I think I had 4 of his games on there, and when with music, when you find somebody that speaks to you, you tend to navigate or gravitate towards their creativity. So
totally. All
right. Well, we got in under 10 minutes. Hopefully, I could keep blathering along and break the thing.
We are so good. We are so good.
4 games in 10 minutes.
That's not bad.
And didn't end up in the cornfield going, hey, how did we get here on the topic?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I had to bite my tongue hard to not do that. So.
Well, we can be found on any of the pod aggregators or, where you find your podcasts.
Wherever you find your favorite podcast, guess what? We're there too.
So thank you for listening and take care.
Yeah. See you guys.
Greetings, this is Brian Chandler at Colourblind Games, and I'm going to draw back today and do a little 101 on color vision deficiency and why it matters for gaming. So Up to 90% of tabletop gaming is visual, and much of that information is color specific. From player tokens to cards to the board itself, color is an integral part of the gaming experience. Unfortunately for colorblind gamers, this information doesn't really have much meaning to us and can even cause confusion, making play difficult or impossible. An estimated 4 to 5% of the population has some sort of color vision deficiency, and others also suffer from low vision. The effects of colorblindness are not well documented. In many cases, then game designers, developers, and publishers inadvertently alienate this part of the community. So as you think about the science a little bit, seeing begins with your eyeballs with the rods and cones. There's 2 photoreceptors on the retina that take information from the environment. They take it through our eyes and then to the brain. And the rods handle light-related information, and the cones handle color. There's 3 cones that take on certain spectrums of that light to the brain, red, green, and blue, kind of like an old RGB computer monitor. And the combination of these produces color vision. But if any one of these cones has a problem, the color absorbed by that cone changes, which then changes the RGB combination received by the brain. Because any one of the cones can malfunction or be missing altogether, the type and severity of color blindness are nuanced. No colorblind person sees the world in exactly the same way as another, which is one reason addressing this issue is so complicated. It's also why running a game design or really anything else through an online colorblind filter is not enough. The most common type of color vision deficiency is deuteranomaly. This is a malfunctioning of the green cone. This is actually the one that I have. And there's also one called a red cone malfunction, protanomaly. And then rarer still is malfunctioning of the blue cone, tritanomaly. And along with this potential malfunction, any one of these cones could also just be totally missing, which can cause additional issues, as you imagine, with color vision. So what happens here is that these cone problems cause a color deficiency impact that's much more than just a single color. Any faulty or missing cone of any of these colors impacts color identification along the entire spectrum. Our overall perception tends to be lower, increasing color confusion, and also the ability to identify colors by name. So the reason this matters, the game table, even though that number is fairly low, 4%, is just kind of a math game here. So think about sitting down at a table. You're with 5 other people, so you've got 6 players at a game table. There's an estimated about 4.25% chance that any one of them is colorblind. Thus, if we essentially use math, we know then that there's a 23% chance that at least one person at that table is colorblind. Footnote here, this is the power of compound probability of independent events, but Mr. Rau would appreciate the mathematical term there. I'm expanding that if you're to run a larger game night with 40 gamers participating, there's an 82% chance that at least one player at your event will be colorblind, which will impact multiple games and multiple tables during that event. And a small convention of 100 is almost guaranteed to have at least one colorblind attendee, and on average we'll have 4. So I hope it gives just a little bit of a introduction to some of the science behind color vision. There's a lot more information available at my website at colorblindgames.com. And next time we'll talk a little bit about the solutions. What can we do to try to mitigate that issue? What do I do when I'm at the table? And what can all of us do to help those that are at our tables that may have color vision deficiencies? Again, thanks to Mr. Rau. Thanks everybody listening. My name is Brian Chandler at colorblindgames.com. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for contributing all your awesome segments again to another wonderful Talking Tabletop podcast. This show cannot exist without you awesome contributors. So I commend you for once again submitting all of your segments and making this show a beaming success once again out on the airwaves. I'm your host, Ryan from the Mista Rau Gaming YouTube channel, and you can find me on YouTube live every Tuesday evening, and regular videos coming out on that YouTube channel really quite regularly, usually on another Thursday and on the weekends. Now, I'm going to take today's segment to talk a little bit about family gaming with your children. And what I mean by family gaming with your children, meaning my particular circumstance is that I have 2 young boys that are really interested in getting into the board game hobby, just like their podcast hosting, YouTube loving, game playing dad. My boys are 6 years old and 8 years old, respectively, and they have been really, really interested into getting into some, more complex games as of late, especially my youngest. I've been gaming with my oldest for a few years now, and now that my youngest, he has just turned 6, really starting to get into this hobby. So I thought I'd highlight first off, what are some aspects of games for kids? What am I really looking for when I'm looking for a gaming with him in particular? And just gaming with a child in general. And then I'm going to highlight a couple of games that we've been playing recently that have really piqued his interest. Now, when I'm talking about gaming with my youngest son here, like I said, right now, he just turned 6 years old. What I'm really, really looking for in those particular games are games that have fairly simple actions. Something like all you have to do is play a card. And maybe that card doesn't have any language on it yet, because he is just in the aspect of just kind of, learning to read and understanding what he is reading. So maybe a very simple action is playing a card, or moving a pawn on the board, or placing some chits down onto a board. And there's really next to no language component part of the game. So very language independent style games is kind of what I'm also really looking for. And I'm also looking for games that don't last a really, really long time. Generally, what I'm looking for on the box is an advertised time of, that 15 to 20 minutes maximum. As we know, gaming with children could be like, that their attention span is that of a waffle sometimes. It's really non-existent. So as long as the game can have fairly quick, simple turns, next to no reading involved on them, and a gameplay time of 15 to 20 minutes, we're starting to hit the sweet spot of that style of game. The boxes of games will come with some age recommendations, and I have found in general that my kids have been able to play games above their actual age. So, for example, a couple of the games I'm going to talk about today are 8 and plus style games, but I have been gaming with them since they were about 5 and 6 years old. So I guess it all depends on their maturity and what they are willing to come up with, or be able to sit down with you and have the patience to learn a game and take them back. But I think the couple of recommendations I have here for today really hit those nice little sweet spots with gaming with the children. Now, the very first game I'm going to talk about is a game that we just recently rediscovered our love for, and that is a game from Hutch Games, designed by Sen-Foong Lim and Jay Cormier, and that is Tic-Tac-Moo. Now, this game was provided to me from Sen-Foong Lim a while ago when I was on the Cardboard Conjecture podcast. Sent me a few games for review purposes and just gaming with my children in general. And so Tic-Tac-Moo is, well, as you would probably guess, probably has some sort of tic-tac-toe element to it. And that is true. One of the aspects of the game is trying to get 3 farm animals in a row. And if you're able to do that, some things happen. So let me go back up a little bit. First off, this is a 2-player only style game, which is very interesting for a family style game. It's 2 players only, and you are, headmasters of a farm, and you're going to be placing out these farm chits, they're little circular discs, out onto this gridded board. And there are certain rules that you have to follow. Now, everybody has the same number of different animal chits, but they are all face down and kind of shuffled. And then there are always 2 animals available in your farm hands. And those are going to be the tiles that you're going to be placing on your turn. And there's always a farm animal in your barn. That's the one that's the most important, because the 2 animals that are in your farm hands, those ones are going onto the board, but the animal that's in your barn, that's the animal that has to be placed beside. So if there's a cow in my barn and I've got a chicken and a sheep in my farm hands, those chicken and sheep have to be placed beside a cow tile. Now, beside a cow tile could mean left, right, up and down, or diagonal from a cow tile that's already on the board. And so that is your decision that you have to do. So you just place your tiles onto the board. The board is divided into 4 main areas. There are 2 red areas for one player and 2 blue areas for the blue player. And the goal of the game is that you want to have all of those areas of one of the blue areas or one of the red areas, depending on who you are, completely filled with animal tiles. If you can do that by the end of your turn, you have won the game. Simple, right? Well, here's the tic-tac-toe part. If at any time on your turn that you've formed at least 3 in a row, well, you get to claim some tiles off of the board, therefore probably preventing your opponent from actually filling in one of their 2 areas. Here's the other way that you can win the game. If you've managed to collect 12 tiles by the end of the game, at the end of your turn, you have also won the game. So there's 2 different ways that you can actually win: collecting 12 tiles by making those 3s in a row, or filling in one of your 2 areas. Simple. And so your actions in this game, very, very simple, but man, can the decision space of being able to try to put your tiles, your animal tiles, somewhere on the board so that you can try to prevent your opponent from getting 3 in a row, while at the same time trying to fill in one of your 2 areas. And the neat part is, you know what your opponent's going to play, because you can also see what's in their barn, what they have to place beside, and what tiles they are going to place. Tic-Tac-Moo by Sen-Foong Lim and Jay Cormier, published by Hutch. Really wonderful, abstract tile-laying game, but unfortunately, fairly hard to find these days. I've really never seen this game in store, so sorry about talking about it and piquing your interests about it. It just, I don't know. If you find it, I would say pick it up, because man, it is absolutely wonderful, especially if you have young gamers in your household. Another game that I have just recently rediscovered, because I bought a brand new copy of it to play with my youngest son, because I've already played this game with my oldest son when he was 6 years old, and that is Zombie Kids Evolution. Published by Scorpion Masqué and designed by Anik Lobe. Now, Zombie Kids Evolution is a fun zombie survival style kids game that is also a legacy style game, because you will be permanently altering the game's state as you are playing through this wonderful, wonderful game. Really, the game starts off really, really nice and simple in the early goings. Zombie tiles have been placed around this school board, and you are taking your characters, your students of this school, and you are just taking some very simple actions. You're either moving, and then you are wiping zombies off the board. That's literally it. If you're in an area with some zombies, you're able to take out a couple of them, and that is all. You roll a die to determine which area the zombies are going to get added back onto the board, and if you can ever meet up with another player at one of the 4 corner locations, you can give yourselves a high five and lock the exterior doors of the schoolyard. And if once you're able to lock all 4 corners of the board, you have won the game. Very short and simple turns, lots of strategy, a little bit of luck involved, because you never know where those zombies are going to get added. But like I said, it is a legacy style game. So as you play through games, you are going to be placing stickers on this achievement chart. And every now and then you are going to unlock a new envelope. And that envelope is going to provide you some little bit of gameplay additions. And change the gameplay just ever so slightly to make it a little bit more involved as you start growing this game. And by the end of it, I can speak to the end of the game because I've already played this completely with my oldest son. At the very end, you do have a very nice, complete package of a game. And you know what? It is not overly overwhelming for the young gamer of your household because lots of the things that are unlocked can be modular, which means you can play with them or you can play without them at the very end of the campaign mode. Wonderful games. Games do not overstay their welcome. They are often done within that 15-minute time frame, usually having your young gamer wanting, at least with me, wanting to play multiple games in a session, which is a trigger that it was an awesome experience for them. We've already started. We're probably about a quarter of the way through. We had just got this just the other day, and already we are loving our experience with Zombie Kids Evolution. And of course, when you're done with that one, you can explore the next one in the lineup, which is called Zombie Teens. But I'll leave you to discover that one on your own, as Rodney Smith would say. All right, everybody. Thank you again for listening to the Talking Tabletop Podcast. I've been your host, Ryan from Mista Rau Gaming. Please go ahead, find me out on YouTube, Mista Rau Gaming. Give me a like, comment on my videos, subscribe to the channel. That's the most important one. And let's grow this small community of gamers. You can find me very active in the Tabletop Express Discord channel. Seek me out there. And I'm also very active on Threads and on Blue Sky at Mista Rau Gaming. If you would like to interact with me on Blue Sky, since it's still invite only, send me an email at misterraugaming@gmail.com. I have a bunch of invite codes that I can send your way if you would like to interact with me over on there. Alrighty. And, I guess I should also mention that if you would like to also be part of the Talkin Tabletop podcast, you do not need to be a content creator. Just search me out on any of my social medias or send me an email, misterraugaming@gmail.com, and we can squeeze you into the podcast, and I'll give you all of the information that you would ever want or ever need in order to contribute segments to this show. All right, everybody, have yourselves a great morning, day, afternoon, or evening, deciding wherever you decided to listen to this podcast. And as always, thank you for listening. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye now.